Assad, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me, Matt.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
so we are in we're in a funny time zone situation here. It was like that for Toby Lloyd in the last episode. He was in New Zealand, so we had a little time difference there. So for the audience, it is 8 o'clock here in California, and it is 7 a.m. the next day
Yep.
in Dubai.
I'm in the future, baby.
I know you're living the future. Well, so let's get into it. Let's start with what I like to call the state of the state. Tell us a little bit about just life today, and then let's backtrack a bit and go back to the early days.
All right, cool. Today, I mean, what I'm doing is, as you know, obviously, I'm an artist as well, so I'm performing a lot of shows. I got a new record out, focusing on that at this moment, and then my daily gig, which is my studio setup, just recording, mixing, and sometimes producing, depending on the artist. And but mostly recording. I love recording and the mixing process. So I'm doing that a lot with separate artists, different artists, the independent artists around. Especially right now, maybe I should go into this, I guess. I'm focusing my studio setup for a lot of the independent artists around here, the original music, something that's unique and experimental and whatnot,
Mm.
rather than, a lot of studios out here in Dubai focus a lot on post-production, jingles, ads, and voiceovers. I did that for a long time. Don't want to do that anymore. Just want to focus on great music and whoever I work with at this moment. So yeah, that's what's been happening. This summer's been good. A few clients, repeat clients keep coming back. Thank God for that.
And
you
you
know,
you operate under the moniker Bull Funk Zoo as your
yeah,
artist name.
correct. So it's basically it's a name I was given 10 years ago by a friend. Was like, you need to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. So I figured I put this whole entity that I have under the title of Bullfunk. So my studio is called Bullfunk Studios, and my artist name is Bullfunk Zoo. And then I have events where I curate improvised jam sessions called Bullfunk Jams. And these are little events which I, invite musicians and all of that stuff going around. So yeah.
And what's the story behind the name Bull Funk?
Well, it started. Bull basically for me stands for perseverance and hard work, I guess. Fighting like a bull. Funk. A lot of the music is based on funk, my music, or funk grooves, I should say. And zoo comes from George Orwell's book Animal Farm. I could call it like something like we're just crazy animals on stage running around doing silly things, or it could be what it is, the Animal Farm. That statement as well. So it could be
Hmm.
both. That's where it comes from.
Well, let's go back in time a bit, really far back in time. Where were you born and where were you raised? And tell me about your upbringing in the early days.
Cool. So I was born in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and my parents are originally from Lebanon. That's where I originate from, and they escaped the war back in the '70s to here to see new prospects and get away. And then I was born here, born and raised here. It was a very interesting country because I grew up in a very multicultural environment. A lot of expats lived here, at that time. So all we had was a lot of desert and a lot of beach and a lot of communities around. It was very different. But the cool part about it is I got to meet the world within my own world, which is, I had neighbors from Europe, neighbors from Middle East, neighbors from Asia, neighbors from all around the world. So growing up in Dubai, I bring this up because it's very interesting. I learned a lot of cultures and a lot of music came from that, growing up. And then when I became a teenager, I moved to the US for a good 10 years, where I dug my teeth into performing a lot. And then I discovered the whole recording process, put a couple albums out, did a little bit of touring there, and then moved back to Dubai in 2000. And since then, I've just been doing that. And yeah, growing up, there's a lot of tinkering going on. I remember the other day when you were talking, actually, I started thinking about things when I got into music at that time. And I discovered my dad had a reel to reel in the house, a TIAC, the old TIACs, 3.5, 7.5 ips. And he had a cassette deck, which was like what was it? A Kenwood. And it had a little mic hole in there. And I remember I knew you could record something on there, but what I would do is I would stick that Kenwood, I'd record something into it, play it back into the reel to reel with a little microphone, and I kind of overdub without knowing what the hell I'm doing. I just like tinkering, and not realizing when I grew up that I had that little bug. It's just like, okay, I want to document whatever I'm playing, and that's kind of how it grew.
Were your parents musical themselves? Did they play an instrument?
No, but they were into music. So I had a lot of Earth, Wind and Fire, a lot of Motown stuff playing around the house. James Brown especially was big in the house. Bunch of stuff, world music from around the world. So there's always kind of music around the house, and they weren't musical per se, but they enjoyed music for sure.
Like, what brought you to the U.S.? What was going on there?
Well, I mean, I graduated high school. I was young. I graduated like around 15, 16, just 16. And I have a lot of family in the U.S. So my parents decided to ship me off there for university or college. So I went to Boston the first year, and then I moved to Minneapolis after that. And that's how I got there, you know.
What was that like culturally for you the first time around, like that first year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, by the way. Because when I left Dubai at that time, when I brought up the subject of growing up with a lot of multicultural people, I already kind of understood a lot of cultures because of that. But when I went to the U.S., it was interesting. I didn't find the multicultural environment there, so it was a different culture, but it was a great culture because I made some really good friends there. I'm still good friends with them till this day. 35 years plus, But the musical culture was just vibrant as hell, and that's exactly what I wanted, And that time in the 90s, CDs were out, so I was collecting CDs. And there was, what was it? At that time, do you remember you can buy like 11 CDs? They'll send you 11 CDs for free, and then you have to buy the next five. I can't remember the name of that company.
The Columbia Record and Tape Club.
Exactly. Yeah. And I couldn't find a lot of the records I wanted to, because when I got to them, like, whoa, I can get 11 CDs for free and then buy the rest, So that was an interesting cultural point for me musically, And plus, Berkeley School of Music was there. So I was there at least 2-3 times a week, going like I wanted to go to that school, but I couldn't because I enrolled in Quincy College in Quincy. And I had, my parents like, you got to study business and marketing, forget the music and blah, blah, blah. You know how parents are, they're always looking out for you. So, and I was a kid, I was 16 at that time. But, the music was in the blood, man. Couldn't let it go. So, yeah, it kind of went on from there. And a lot of stories after that, but yeah.
But would you say that the business and marketing things that you learned are helping you years later from the music and studio perspective?
Not really. I'm not going to lie to you. I remember even the dean of the university, he said, listen, whatever you're going to learn here is only 1% of what you learn outside. And it's true. I didn't find it as useful to go to like business school or marketing school because that environment changes day by day. Like, how are they going to keep up, So, okay, cool. There's a few things I learned, but I mean, I'm not really good at marketing. To be honest with you, even though I studied it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, in marketing and business thoughts of the 90s I'm sure that there's some basic principles, but the landscape has changed so drastically.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think the best marketing tool till this day is word of mouth because people trust other people. So when they say this is good, friend trusts you and that's the way to go, rather than just blasting everything in your face all the time. Do this, do that.
When you were in the US, had you had any experience with recording studios? And also just in general, when did it become apparent to you that this was something you enjoyed?
In Boston, I joined a punk rock band at that time, and we kind of did a little record on someone's 4-track. And I didn't know exactly what was going on. I was like, yeah, let's cut this stuff down. And it was really interesting because it was great to hear what you played and hear it back, So it didn't start there. When I moved to Minneapolis, I started also playing with other bands over there. And same thing, I'd go into a recording studio and I'd be so in awe looking at what the engineer is doing. And they were using tape at that time, right? I remember we went to a studio and they had I think it was a 16-track. It wasn't a studio or anything fancy. It was really cool. Like everything was going on tape. And it reminded me when I was young that's kind of that was the philosophy I was trying to do, from running the tape cassette machine into the reel-to-reel and back and forth. So I was overdubbing, but it just got worse and worse, obviously, but I'm like, oh, I can put things on top of things. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I figured I could do that with recording. And you remember Musician's Friend, obviously. I don't know if they're still around or not. Guitar Center. And when they used to send us cards by credit. So I remember I went on their when we had magazines at that time. So I'd flip through the magazines, and there was I think it was a 414 Tascam. I think that's the anyway, it was a 4-track cassette machine. I was like, I'm buying one of these. I bought a little sequencer, a Zoom little rhythm machine, and it's got all these sounds. I had my guitar, my amps, and stuff like that. And then I just started dabbling heavily into that. And I did over 250 recordings just on that little tape machine. For me, I needed to document ideas before I forget them. That's how it kind of started. But also the fascination came in. I loved pedals, guitar pedals, and I loved experimenting with pedals. I'd run things through. So that whole bug came in. I was like, whoa, we can do all of this stuff? Amazing. I was only 18 at that time, something like
Hmm.
that, 16 to 18. So that was like within a 2-year thing. And that's how the bug came in. And then I heavily got into understanding and talking to engineers and learning because I was a really pesky kid, like musically. I was so hungry to learn new stuff, especially in Boston, Minneapolis. I could go up to musicians who I liked or whoever people were there and knock on the door. Can you teach me this? Can you teach me that? Can you teach me? I was so annoying that in the end they liked me because they said, okay, this guy really wants to learn. And I would do the same thing with the engineers who I knew in Minneapolis, but they wouldn't give me much time of day because like they wanted me to intern, but I had a job, I had school, I had gigs. I wanted to do that. Whatever I could go and into the studio, I would go and just absorb whatever I can.
What ultimately led to you coming back to Dubai? And, you know, were you sad to leave the US, or were you excited to come back home and kind of get sorted out there?
I was very sad to leave the US. I loved the US. It was like home for me, because I was gigging all the time. I had a great community. I was surrounded. It was great. I was living on the street with a bunch of musicians, bro. Like, hey, I need a trombone player. Yeah, yeah, call up this guy. He's down the road. Fantastic. Let's go. So all these perks and all these things and just surrounded by great people all the time. I left because I was there like on a student visa.
Hmm.
So I finished my student visa, finished the uni and stuff like that. So it was time to go back. And then I said, okay, cool, let's go back. My family's still here in Dubai. And let's start something in Dubai because it's a new place, as you know, obviously, especially early 2000. There's still a lot of development going on in the UAE. And I said, let's jump in on that. So I moved back and I tried to set up shop. I did actually set up a studio here, building stuff from a Digi 001 rig. And I was like, wow, this is really cool technology. And there was a great gentleman here from Canada. His name is Paul Hirschspiegel, and he was heading the audio department in one of the big universities here. And we got to be good friends. I was like, okay, Paul, can I cut my first record with you and just be a fly on the wall with what you're doing? I always cut live with the whole band. I still prefer it that way, like, recording music live as it is. Then I built a setup and I took a massive loan. I was like, okay, this is the way forward right now. And this is what I love to do. I want to do for the rest of my life. So I bought a whole big rig and it was expensive at that time. I mean, it was a cool system to learn on. I knew it didn't sound that great. So I always had an external, like, a console or something, nothing too fancy, but to get those right preamps, because they said they had nice preamps on the digital. I was like, nah, they didn't sound that great. So anyway, so I went from there and I was experimenting a lot in that studio, which I built. So I got a place which had a drum room in it, which I built a drum room, an ISO booth, and my control room. And I started experimenting a lot with drum recording because I could never get the right sound, which I hear in my head. And I had basic microphones, 57s, 58s. I think I had a KSM 32, a large diaphragm. Anyway, but I was experimenting with all of that and trying to get the sounds. And then I ended up recording the first record with that with the help of Paul Hirschspiegel, who, guided me a lot. And I learned a lot from him, especially in production world. And that was at that time. I released the first Abstract Collision before Bufong, so I had this outfit called Abstract Collision in 2002. And also that time CD Baby came out. You remember that, obviously. And I became friends with Derek Sivers because, he sold CD Baby many years ago. So we're in touch. I was like, how do I get my music out there? And CDs, we had to put out CDs. And there's no streaming or any MP3, which was great because I made money selling CDs, man. Now I make barely any money.
So you've got this studio, not, you've got your first incarnation of your studio, you're recording your own music, you're connected with Derek. So you've figured out the CD baby route for releasing music.
Hmm.
So how long did that studio last?
2.5 years. And the reason being is I was a kid and I didn't know how to run a business. Plus at the same time, said I'll run it as a business, but it was also a big experimental place for me to learn about this because in Dubai, let's say in the UAE, I didn't have the facilities of what we had in the US. All the recording facilities, all the know-how, and the internet was barely around to learn anything. So I remember I bought this great book, which I still have, everything you need to know about. I can't remember the name of it, but it was very technical from acoustics to all of that. So I really delved into that book and try to decipher a lot of it and experiment all of that.
Mm.
So with no knowledge around, I had to make do with what I had. Also with the help of Paul Hirschspiegel, who was kind of my mentor in that
I was
way.
going to say that guy clearly was a mentor to you.
Oh yeah, 100%. He was great, and then I lost the business because I couldn't hack it for the rent and keep the lights on, and I had to sell everything and just restart over. So after that, I joined television broadcast as a recording engineer, or let's say, live audio engineer, I would say, and also recording because I did a lot of recording, did a lot of jingles and whatnot for 7 years over there.
Are there a lot of job opportunities for an audio professional in Dubai and in the UAE in general?
There are for live sound. We got some top live sound engineers here because, I mean, the UAE, I work in events as well as a show caller or show director, and we work, big governmental events, huge, huge events, and we need the top of the top guys, so there are a lot of AV companies here. So there's opportunities for live a lot more than studio or production because I get asked a lot. Actually, a friend of mine who lives out in LA, called me the other day. He's like, any opportunities? I'm like, man, listen, I can help you out, but it's a small market. That's the only thing. But it's a growing market. So I'm in the right place at this moment where it's growing in production. Plus, when it comes to production, like you would know and I know, like with our clients, some clients don't understand concepts of tech and whatnot. So you have to always educate while you're doing things. And here it's still in the educational process, especially for a lot of the artists or people who want to record to understand how things work. So we go off, actually, I do sometimes seminars with a colleague of mine who does this thing called, he does little, I wouldn't say master classes, let's say knowledge classes of how to run a DAW, how to run this, how to run that.
Workshops.
Yeah, little workshops, I would say. So that's been helpful. And the nice thing now in Dubai, the past couple of years, I mean, they brought out Tony Maserati for a master class, which is awesome. I was invited. I couldn't go because I had a job. And they brought Manny Merrick in as well, and he did a master class. So I was like, wow, like for something like that to happen here, for these guys to come, it's an eye opener because, okay, now this system or this environment is actually opening up to the value of production when they bring people like that out. You know what I mean? Like in the US, it's common. They'll go around, but for here, it's not that common. They bring all the big acts. Like we just had Limp Bizkit last week play here, and all the acts are here. But the educational part is like it's all tied in together. Another big thing is my biggest part of educational thing. Everybody's got a laptop they can record and all of that stuff, and I help a lot of artists out saying, listen, it's great. Do your production, do your arrangement, and then come to my studio so you could save time because I charge by the hour. And re-record your stuff, with nice microphones and preamps and performances, blah, 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 and I'll mix it for you. So they started to understand that you can't just put out music, which, might be great music, but it's not, the production value is not so great. And I always tell them, listen, once you put it out there, it's out there forever. And just don't be hasty because you're excited about a song. I know how it feels. But make sure the value production is great because after a few years, you're going to regret what you put out,
Yeah.
Which happened to me, my first record too, I was so excited. I was a kid. Yeah, I'm going to put out my first independent record in the UAE. Let's go. I hear it's good. It's good, but production value, that needs a bit of work, but it's good learning process. And we all go through that anyway, nothing's perfect. So
the first incarnation of the studio doesn't work out, you sell everything and start over and you start working in broadcast. How long did the broadcast type gigs and live sound type gigs? I'm assuming you were kind of doing both, right? Doing a little
Yeah,
live sound and
I
doing some broadcast.
I was doing live sound broadcasts and doing performing shows because I had residencies around I was playing as a session guitar player as well. That went on for 7 years. One of the biggest broadcasts is called MBC, not NBC, M with a M for mother. So I was with them, but also I wanted to learn the rest of it. So by the end of my stint as a TV broadcaster, I became a studio director because I wanted to produce stuff as well, not just live audio and all that. And that went on hand in hand together. So I was a studio director and run all the audio live at the same time, lights and all that. They used to call me the octopus there because I couldn't get people to sync in with me because you had a lot of Foleys and background music or little sound effects going on. And I'd shift everything and turn things on at the right moment when I couldn't get people around me to do so. I just did it myself, you know. If you saw my shop, it was funny. I had like my mixing console on the left, my vision console in the middle, and my lighting console on the right. And I had access to all of them, you know.
I bet you learned a lot in that time period, that chunk of time between the first studio closing, doing the broadcast stuff. Like, I'm sure that there was a lot of lessons learned that you would later, they would either influence you or inspire you or, you know, get you to push forward to the next incarnation of the studio, right?
Very true, very true. Because even during the time when I was in broadcast, I always had a small setup at home. I did learn a lot from the live thing, but there was a point at the end. It's like, okay, I'm not learning so much, and that's when I wanted to move into the broadcast, being a producer or a studio director and so forth. Because I kind of started getting bored. You know, I mean, live field sound recording. I stopped doing that at a period. There was guys who go do that, and I would just like compose the music, whatever needs to go in the background, easy done because at that time we used a lot of library music too on CDs. So I had to go to the library, and this library was massive, and go pick out this song. Not like today on the phone, like I want something that sounds like this. You have to dig. So it's like digging for a record. So I remember I used to have to like once a month, and I'd go dig for like 2 solid days and pick out things like 15 seconds, 20 seconds, put them in and out. So, I mean, that was cool. But we had really nice consoles. They had a big Cata console, they had a Studer console. And there was one point they had an SSL, but it was down. And the engineers and the TV broadcast knew how to fix these consoles so well. And I became friends with the electrical engineers just to learn things from them too as well. So I did learn a lot from that part. Yeah, that's true.
What transpired to get you into the next incarnation of the studio, which I assume is where you're talking to us from now?
Yeah, I mean, that was always at the back of my head, but the first loss, I took a really big loss financially. So I was treading really carefully to open up shop. But during these years, you know, at my home studio, I was already buying gear, which I wanted, you know, so all this collections over 25 years. And I knew this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, being a performer and a recording engineer for these years. So post NBC, I also worked with National Geographic as well as a producer and as a field recordist and as a mixer as well. So I did that for 2 years, 3 years after that. Then I focused on my performance because I was releasing albums at the same time, you know. And during these album recordings, I was recording in other studios here. And I was never happy with the final results, especially the drums, And I was like, okay, that's it. I need to open up shop. So I opened up proper shop in 2019, and it's great from there, But COVID hit, and I was gonna open up a proper venue, because I wanted a recording studio with a venue that has a live stage, and like podcast rooms upstairs for rent, because I got to keep the money bringing in. Studio business here doesn't always give you full potential of finances. You got to do other stuff. So I'm doing other stuff with it, Luckily, COVID hit. So I set up shop in my place. It's like temporary. Let's do it here, what you're seeing here. And I haven't opened up anything else because I'm getting a lot of mixed jobs and recording. I record a lot of drums, vocals here. And this room I have is great for drums. I set it up just so the drums would sound great in here. And horns, funny enough.
So this is in your home?
This is in my home. Well, actually, The studio, I live in my studio. Let's put it that way. Because if you see my whole house, I got backline gear. I have an old console, a Sony DMX R100. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do.
I have one, and it's like sitting in my living room. It needs some serious calibration though, because I could still use the 24 channel preamps in there. You know, it's got the old Sonox plugins and all of that.
Oh yeah.
And I need to maintain it, but it's going to cost me a shit ton of money to maintain it. So I'm thinking, do I do it? Do I not do it? You know?
Talk to me a bit about cohabitation with the studio in your home. Like, do you have a significant other? Like, do you have family there in the home, or
No,
is it
no,
just you?
just me and my cat. Yeah.
You and your cat. Perfect. So tell me about, like the layout of your space, and how do you not impede on other
Neighbors.
residents in the area?
So when I was looking at apartments in 2019, I moved into this. I was very particular about what apartment I was getting. I was married at that time, and then I got divorced. And I told my ex-wife at that time, I was like, listen, I need a proper room, at least the right size room where I can work in, and what I don't need to soundproof and just acoustically treat, because we're not going to own this apartment, and I'm not going to pay a shit ton of money to soundproof a place, and then it's going to get demolished, and I don't own the place. Do you know what I mean? So I found this spot, and the beautiful part is it's like a 2.5 bedroom apartment. So it's a big apartment. I got a massive living room. And the room which I'm in right now, the control room or the drum room, I combine them here together, is in between 2 bedrooms. And there's doors that close in. So whenever I record drums here, it's already decoupled from everything else. So
Oh,
I'm good
okay.
to go, which is fantastic. So I was lucky at that time. And the room met Bonello, the graphs, the hertz, and all of the for the acoustics. So it was right on the dot for Bonello, 4.32 meters by 3.4 by 3.2, and a great acoustician friend of mine, John Brandt. He helped me out a lot too. We got to talking quite a bit. So in that case, it sounds great, and all the acoustic panels here. Like I got diaphragmatic absorbers, like proper broadband absorbers. I started building those and experimenting a lot with them, with different cubic pressure meters for each, rock wool or mineral wool, whatever you want to call it, and just testing it out until I got it sitting nicely. So my room sounds pretty good, for where it is. It's very close. Everything's close, but it's a small room. So I'm always mixing wherever my head is. I'm not like pushing back or whatnot. And being at home, man, I love it because in the middle of the night, I could get up and start working, and that happens to me a lot. I get an idea, like I'll be watching TV, I'll get an idea, okay, jump in the studio, let's do it. I love that immediacy of I can just go in and do it rather than getting in a car and going somewhere and just you lose the creative
Oh
energy,
yeah.
And people who come here, they love it because I made it in a way where they feel at home. And I want an artist to come into the studio feeling at home and chilled out and relaxed so I could get the best out of them, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. And what I'm
Yeah.
curious about is your spot. Is it a multi-level apartment building?
Yep. I'm on the third floor. I'm on the highest floor. So I got neighbors downstairs. But their room, which I'm in, is their guest bedroom. So they don't get any noise down there. Well, I
And
haven't had any complaints for 6 years, so I'm
okay,
good.
so and when you moved in, did you do any tests and go to and say, "Hey, I'm gonna play some music. Like, do you mind if I just see how loud I can turn my music up?"
Uh-huh. So what I did, like when I started recording, it's funny, when I opened up shop, I recorded the band Noon, who are blowing up right now live here. And I printed out these sheets of paper saying, listen, I'm a recording engineer, blah, 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 explaining myself, I'm new here. And I'm only going to record up till 6, 7 in the evening, if you guys don't mind, for a few days. And I kept doing that. And there's a security guard downstairs at the reception. I was like, did anybody complain? He's like, no, everything's cool. So I stopped even writing those letters. But I was very courteous to say, look, I'm going to do this and people wouldn't mind and all that, just out of common courtesy. So far, so good. Unfortunately, my living room is huge, so I could set up shop there, but there's a place where I'd have to really soundproof it. So I do it as more of a writing session room because I have a small rig in my living room, just a simple rig with a snake where I can patch things in. And I got artists coming in or myself, whatever it is. And we just, let them chill out, hang out, some writing stuff and bring it back into this studio.
I'm willing to bet that you're really happy that you set up shop at home because the money that you're saving helps change the dynamic of all of this.
100%. I mean, I don't know how it is out there now with fees. Like for me to set up what I want to do, eventually I'm going to do that anyway. I want to get a place where I have it like as a club where original live music comes through 2-3 times a week, curate events there, and the recording studios in the back, all of that. But that stuff, I mean, you get a warehouse that's super expensive to rent, especially the right location. You know, it's all about the location. I mean, for here, for something specific like this, and then build it up. And the build up is going to cost a lot of money. And I look at it as, is the return on investment worth it here for this particular region? Right now, no. You know, unless I get a massive artist come in, you know, pay a lot of money, or pay it all off, then I'm good to go with that. Because don't forget, we're here. Royalties, we don't get royalties or things like that from our production because it's not developed there yet. They're saying they're developing it. So I don't get any income from any of the music or ads or stuff I've been on TV or whatnot happens, sync licensing and all of that. So hopefully that'll come through soon. The reason I bring that up because that is also usually a source of income that could be, well, it's not always a good source of income, but something. So I have to deal with every day today without thinking about royalties and all of this other stuff, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's talk about gear buying and some of the challenges there, because I've talked to various people in different countries, and depending on where you're at, you've got different tariffs or import taxes, and gear can get expensive when you don't live near where the gear is manufactured or where the home base is. So you and I were talking about this the other day in our initial phone call that we were having. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of that and how you kind of overcome that?
Well, there's two parts of the challenges. You know, I mean, we don't have all the distributors. We don't have a Vintage King here. So there's a lot of gear I test out via YouTube, let's say. That's the first challenge, is knowing the piece of gear I want. But luckily, I've worked with a lot of these pieces of gear from broadcast. So that was a good learning curve. In broadcast, we had a lot of LA2As, 1176s, blah, 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 the usual works, you know. But there's certain pieces which, like a Varimu that doesn't cost as much as a Varimu, or a Fairchild, and I got this IGS, which is pretty cool, I like it. And so that was a challenge, and YouTube audio is not always great, and I don't always trust YouTube when people play stuff through there. So let's say I'm looking at this piece of gear, I want to see videos of people who've tested it out, and I get the vibe, but I need the details. For us, it's all about the small, minute details. And is this feasible? Sometimes on YouTube, people do these gear shows and they over-amplify things, which they shouldn't, I wouldn't say amplify, over-glorify a piece of gear because they're trying to sell it, which you and I know there's a lot of that happening. And it's that. So for me to be hands-on with things like that, that was a big challenge. There's a few pieces of things I wanted. So that was a challenge. The next challenge is, okay, I find this piece of gear, great. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to invest in this piece of gear. Before COVID, it was okay, the tariffs and stuff like that. So the import tax, like you buy a piece of gear and it comes in, and their import tax here is about 21%. They say it's 5%, but there's like registration fee, this fee, that fee, that fee, and it comes out to about 21%, including they import tax even on the shipping charge. So let's say you buy a piece of gear for $3,000 and it costs you $200 or $300 to ship out here. They'll tax you on $3,300, not just the $3,000, right?
Okay.
Post-COVID, though, after a couple of years, shipping just skyrocketed, with FedEx or DHL. Bringing stuff from abroad, I would always go with a reputable company like FedEx or DHL, whatever here, because I know I'm going to get the product and hopefully it'll be intact, rather than using other companies. I don't know what's going on. And it just, it skyrocketed. All of that is like, damn, man. Like if I want to service something, that's another problem I have, is servicing some pieces of gear. So I had to learn a bit of luckily I sat with each piece and started learning the nuances. If anything goes wrong for me, it's like, how do I troubleshoot this? How do I figure this out? And there's a few things that went down and I honed it in. So like, let's say example, Dakin preamps. I don't know if you ever used the Jeff Dakin.
Oh yeah,
Amazing
yeah.
preamps
There's a
for it.
studio I use that's got a Daking console,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah.
How is it?
Oh, it's great. It's fantastic. And
Yeah,
Jeff Daking's a nice guy too.
I love his stuff. His preamps are great. So, like one of my preamps, I figured the DI is working, but not the mic input. So instead of sending them a whole unit or whatever, I always email them, listen, can you just send me the parts and give me instructions of how to install it? It'll be much cheaper for me than paying shipping to send it there and paying shipping back and waiting for things. So that way it's been working out. Like my Manly stuff, Manly is amazing, by the way. I had one of my preamps, the Force, the transformer just wouldn't work anymore. And I got this brand new. So I remember I emailed and Ivana Manley, funny enough, she responded like, yes, you know, like, listen, my transformer's like, okay, cool. That's all she said. She said, give me your address. 2 days later, she ships me out a transformer with the shipping for free. How amazing is that? I love companies like that because they really take care and they love their products. So, you know, they put some care and love into it. Some other companies
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention haven't even responded to me.
Yeah. Well, so that presents a real challenge for you because you have to, first of all, on the buying front, when you're buying something, you have to do a shit ton of research. You
Hmm.
have to make sure it's exactly what you want. And then not only that, but you can't just like buy it without really researching the company and the
Of
support.
course.
And if it breaks, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
It it adds a whole nother level of stress to the buying process for you. Not even to mention the time difference if it's a US based company,
Yeah.
the 11-hour difference it takes to have a conversation on the phone is a
Yeah,
challenge.
I mean that's okay. I mean I could always deal with the phone conversation, but I mean you're right. It is a challenge, but you know I guess I was lucky also just working in broadcast and other places when they had a lot of these pieces of gear which I've used. You know, I bought a lot of
Mhm.
similar stuff which I've used already and newer stuff, but it is a challenge. I mean there's some pro audio distributors here that are friends of mine. You know, from Elysia to Loop Trotter to even Neve and all of this stuff, but they don't have showrooms per se. They're distributed for you here. So it is a challenge. But for me, like buying gear, it's just gear in the end of the day, tools, as we know, right? Especially particularly outboard gear. For me, the front end is very important. It's so important. And this is a big educational thing I'd like to show people, especially in this community. Like, guys, when you record, you really got to hone in on the recording. For me, that's be all and end all. How you place the mic, what mic you're using, the usual stuff you and I know, and the preamps and all of that. Because I've tried, you know, the Apollos. I'm running Apollos here. Preamp, they're cool and everything, but I mean, you and I know once you get the recording really nailed in, obviously performance first and the quality of recording, everything else is just easy. You know, the
Mhm.
mix is already there. You just need to push faders up, pan things, glorify things a little bit here and there, and it sounds great. For me, recording, it's got to sound like 80% of where the record's going to be, at least, starting point. You know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
you can't go wrong with getting a lot of preamps. I have a lot of preamps because I can, you know, record up to about 32 channels now. So it's all future proofing for a big place, you know?
And tell me if I'm wrong about this. So when you're making a decision to buy, let's say you're buying a new preamp, you're going to research the hell out of that. You're going to learn everything you can. Not, you're not only going to, you know, you're going to learn about, you know, what the circuitry is. You're going to probably go a few more steps in learning about that piece of gear than the average person who has it at their fingertips and can get it, you know, next day through Amazon or whatever, or for Vintage King or one of the dealers. Is that is that accurate to say that you do that a heavy amount of research?
I do that heavily. And the funny part is, I have a lot of documentation on it. So, like, for a period of, especially COVID, I would sit with one microphone and all the different preamps, and I would record with this microphone in combination with that preamp, that preamp, that preamp, that preamp, and I evaluated. Okay, this would be good on a female vocalist who has a lot of falsettos, example, with this preamp, or you get what I'm saying, right? And I
Mhm.
would sit and document all that, even with the compressors I have. I would sit and document just to learn them inside out as well. Because when I want to work, I don't want to sit there and experiment with the gear. I want to know that that's the piece of gear I need and put it in. So all the experimentation and the knowledge after I get it, is done diligently via documentation and a lot of listening, if that makes sense. Now if I get a singer and I hear her or his timbre, I was like, okay, let's use this microphone, let's use this preamp. I think we should be good. They all sound great, but there's particular things where, you practice your ears to kind of hear things more or less. And
Yeah.
you're always practicing your ears. I'm practicing my ears every day, even the instrument and audio, just like, but sometimes it's too much, because sometimes you overthink things, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Well, so how do you get your clients? Is it word of mouth, as you
Yep.
mentioned earlier?
I like the word of mouth. I don't do much marketing for the studio. I mean, a lot of people know me here as an artist, and as an engineer. What that does for me, it filters out people who are doing it for fun. I'm not so much into that. Like, some people want to come and just record for fun and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, cool, I'll charge you by the hour, let's go. But with the word of mouth thing, it draws me in the quality artists, a lot of the quality artists, which is good because they know they can trust me and work with me in this session, and they know my musical background. So my advantage is being also a composer and musician. I help the artist get things out of them that they didn't know they had. So that is a particular way of how I approach it. And I'm very active in the scene here, if that makes sense. So word of mouth is the key for it, for me. I could sit and advertise, but there's a lot of studios here at post-production, and I don't want to do that because I don't know, it looks weird for me. Once in a while I throw in, yeah, come down. I have, sessions in at half price for this month, and that's it, but other than that, not really.
You mentioned you diversify. You do a lot of different things, but how would you rate your survival there in Dubai?
Being here throughout the years, it's all about the networking, right? So I've been back from the US for 25 years. So I did a lot of heavy networking around, especially networking in a place which is super transient. So people will move out here for a few years and move out and blah, blah, blah. So you develop relationships. But now over the past 7-8 years, I've seen a lot of steady people who live here. So to financially survive this is through networking, So as I mentioned, I have the studio, which is my baby, and as an artist, and I also work in events as a show caller, taking my broadcast skills and putting them in there. I'm still working with an AV team, with the creative team, and blah, 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 and doing live shows, which I love as well. And that's a big source of income for me as well.
Oh, yeah, that's another income stream for you.
Yeah, 100%. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, this guy's doing everything, blah, blah, blah. It's out of necessity that I have to do all of that here. I always think to myself, I'm doing way too much, and I know that, but I had to learn how to time manage everything I do. Else I'll just crumble and not develop, if that makes sense, Like, especially now, summertime for events, it's dead season. So I focus a lot on writing a new record. Every day I have a disciplinary thing I do. I wake up in the morning, I practice my guitar for a good hour, and I practice, not just noodle around, like, to keep up in shape, with that. And then after that, what I start doing is I want to listen to what's out there musically. So I'll sit for a good hour or two and get Discover Weekly on board from Spotify and whatnot, which I stopped using, by the way. But anyway, it's a great place to find out what's new out there, because I love listening to new and diverse music, especially unpopular music. I don't say unpopular, that's not true. But, I'm a big Frank Zappa jazz head, all the experimental music, all of that stuff. So
yeah,
you get where I'm coming from, right? So especially funk and all soul and all of that. So this is another part of my day. And then I either have sessions to do, like today after this, I got a mastering session for a client, which I've been mixing his record. And when I have free time, I'll sit and I'll tinker with, let's say, a plugin I have or a piece of gear. Right now, I haven't bought pieces of gear in a few years, but like a new plugin I would get and I would just mess with it to see, is it usable in my toolbox? I'd do things like that. Or I'd sit there and go back to my old mixes or masters, and I would see what I can do better with them now. Because you progress along the way. Your ears always... whatever you mixed 10 years ago, now you can mix it better, Same thing with music. I never stop learning. That's the beautiful part about what we do, because there's always a challenge. I think in the end of the day, us as engineers, we just love troubleshooting and doing puzzles. It gets me going on, when there's a challenge. How do you fix this? Or I even like in the studio, I would invent things or create things. You know, we're talking about my room in isolation, funny enough. So I have the drums in here. I'll just give you a little example, right? I have a beautiful Ludwig Classic Maple. I love this drum. It's the Black Beauty snare. I've got a few selection of snares. And I was up on the roof of the building one day, and I know there's going to be vibrations translated down to the, to my next door neighbor. And I didn't want to build a floating floor because I don't have the space and take it out, with the whole tennis ball thing, whatever. And it just looks clunky. I went upstairs on the roof and I looked at the AC compressors. They're big, heavy duty AC compressors. And if you look below how they mount AC compressors, they come in with this rubber mat and cork and whatnot. What is that? That's a decoupler right there, isn't it? And you're talking about an AC compressor that, I don't know how many dBs it delivers of rumble as well. And you don't hear and it's right on top of me, so I don't hear it. So I took that similar concept. I got some vinyl rubber, thick vinyl rubber, and I bought some cork, and I sandwiched them. Here, hang on, let me show you one of them. One second.
Yeah, let's see that. For those that are listening, I apologize. You'll have to head over to YouTube to see this.
So what I did, instead of building a hole, can you see that?
I can, yeah, that's great.
So that's cork here. And I got Bison Kit. I don't know if you guys have Bison Kit. It's kind of glue, which is really stinky. And you put them together and you compress it. So the reason why you see it small is like, okay, on the drums, I don't need to floor the whole drum. Where's the vibrations coming from? The kick pedal, the hi-hat pedal, the legs of the kick drum, right? So I have these on each leg, standing here. And on the kick drum pedal, it's a long one right under the kick drum pedal. And also the hi-hat pedal right underneath it, right? And I tested out. Funny enough, it made my kick sound better, tighter. Because, I got it on carpet right now. But this made it sound a little bit tighter, just to put these things under there. I'm also an avid diver, by the way. I was a dive instructor,
Really?
Scuba diver, yeah. So the reason why I bring that up is because I had a lot of old wetsuits. And what's great about wetsuits? It's neoprene, isn't it? Great insulator. Like, I'm sure you've seen something like this, but what is our biggest problem with hi-hats and snares?
Right. Okay. Is this your hi-hat bleed solution?
This is my hi-hat bleed solution, I just got some rubber and some acoustic foam just to put, so the mic comes in from here. You know what I mean? So it does stop the bleeding. And also for bottom snare clamps. Like I love doing this stuff because, you gotta come up with solutions of buying something fancy and expensive for no reason. And like all my snares, I have 3 separate snares, my A&F, my Black Beauty, and a Pearl snare. And they all have their dedicated snare stand. And the reason why I bring that up is I brought an old lighting clamp for the snare bottom. And, the snare bottom, I don't want to use more stands on my drums. I want to eliminate stands as much as I can. So I got like a lighting clip, which I clipped on the back, and I drilled a hole in it and put a mic clamp on it. So it's always in the right position for each snare, in the in phase positions. You have the top snare and bottom snare, if that makes sense.
I love that.
And it's handy because, okay, and now, like, example, I got a drum session on Sunday. And the drummer's like, listen, we might use your A&F snare for one song, your Black Beauty another. I'm like, cool, I don't have to dismantle everything. I just take the whole snare, take it out, just replug the mics in. They both have clamps on there, and they're both perfectly in phase. Done. You know what I mean? For me, efficiency's key. Efficiency's key. Let's go. Creative workflow has to be fast,
Yeah. You have some challenges here that, you're in an apartment, so that there's some challenges there, which you've kind of figured out, okay, where are the weaknesses and how can I shore them up? And, the rubber and the cork thing, and then the gear choices and everything that you do there, it seems that you really are just making the best of everything you have.
Mm-hmm. Well,
in so many ways. Yeah, absolutely. And, I wanted to just say this, you mentioned earlier, you said, it's a growing market. And sometimes when we're early to something, but we stick it out, when it starts to become popular and you've been there and you know how it all works and you've established yourself, it's fantastic, because large percent of this business, at least it's been for me, is just sticking around and not quitting.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get tough at some points, but you figure out, okay, well, I'm going to go do these different gigs and develop these different income streams and still survive. And I think that, your comment earlier about what bull funk means, you know, it now makes 100% complete sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's love. In the end of the day, we love what we do. I can't like not live my life without music in the end. It doesn't make sense to me. So you make it work, I guess. But you're so right about sticking it out because, you know, there's a lot of successful people out there, especially the YouTube selling gear, blah blah blah, and everybody. For me, I always think, when do you have time to work? When they're trying to sell you a piece of game, like you're churning out 4 or 5 videos a week. I've done videos here in the studio on my Bullfunk Studios page. I don't know if you ever checked them out. For like,
I have.
all of this stuff. And my intern is like, let's do it. Dude, it takes a couple of days to do this whole thing. Like, and these guys churn out videos. Like, okay. So it doesn't, so not everybody's, but what you said is the perseverance. We just got to keep doing it because, man, we have a lot of downs, by the way, people don't realize. I don't think people realize that. I mean, I don't know, from my personal preference, personal me, I have a lot of downs and then I have a lot of ups, and it's always unpredictable, especially the studio thing. Like I would say, okay, the season's coming now, it's coming, okay, it's down. Or it comes again and it's like fully up,
Mhm.
So there are downfalls, but the thing is, how do you utilize the downtime? And that's when I sit and practice a lot, especially studios. Like I have a regimen. You got to do it. For me, I have to do it every day. Keeps me going.
On that note of the ups and the downs, I find that I try not to get too overly excited about when somebody says, "Hey, we're going to do this thing," and you're thinking, "Oh, wow, this is going to be great. I'll work on this deal and it's going to be fun. I'm going to make some money and it's a good credit." And then it doesn't materialize. So what I try to do is just kind of maintain okay, cool. Let me know when you're ready to go.
Same
You know,
here.
I I
Same
I
thing.
don't try to over excite myself and start telling my wife, "Oh, there's gonna be this great gig." She got tired of that, a long time
Yeah.
ago where like she's like, "You don't have to tell me about every single gig that may or may not happen. Let's celebrate the ones that do, but until they do, let's be chill about it." And it really has paid off just mentally from a mental health perspective.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good mindset. And you mentioned now a very important word. I mean, we're both probably Gen X as you and I, but mental health is becoming a big thing in this, especially post COVID and people staying in a lot and all of that. So I think mental health is a very important thing for studio engineers to take care of very well. Because in the end of the day, um, imagine you get a client in coming in. We're a service. We're in the service industry. You and I are in the service industry, and a new client comes in, and you don't know this person. Obviously, you have to have your nice ways dealing with an artist, knowing where they're coming from, being a fly on the wall when you need to be, and just working with that. But if you're not, let's say you're not in a good space in your head that day, it's just unfair for the client that he has to see or she has to see that. You know what I mean? So it's important to always keep your mental health in check because it could affect business. So I believe if you're not in a good state of mental health, if I have a session today and I'd rather postpone this session and be in good spirit, which it rarely happens, but if it was push comes to shove gonna happen, I would do that because I would rather, okay, maybe disappoint my client that we can't do it today, but we can do it tomorrow, rather than having that client leave my place on the day if we did it today and I was not in the right mood and he or she felt that. I'd rather them not see that at all. I've been in studios recording as my band, a lot. And I know I want to go into a comfortable, easygoing environment where I can get all my all in there. That was the whole purpose of the home recording and stuff because we're always the most comfortable at home. You're in your boxer shorts, you got your guitar, blah, 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 playing around. You don't care who's watching, but, the record button's there, let's go, and you get
Yeah.
some few takes and you can take your time with it rather being in a commercial facility where, the pressures and the drills and people watching. I don't believe you can actually portray yourself fully on that way unless you're kind of comfortable with the people you're with and the environment you're in. And the sound, obviously, is very important. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
What wise words, man. I 100% agree. Um, well, for the audience, link will be in the show notes to all things that Assad is doing. Bullfunk Zoo, Bullfunk Studios, and
Bullfunk Jams.
yeah, and I'll include a couple links to some albums that you've got out there as well.
Yeah,
So, not just websites, but, places where they can actually just click and take a listen. So,
that'd be
um,
awesome, man.
man, I'm so glad that we could figure this out. I know it's a nutty time zone difference that we've got, but we sure as hell made it work. And I
100%.
really appreciate you making time for me.
Thank you for having me on the show, man. I appreciate it a lot, by the way. It was a great conversation,
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk again. I'm sure we're going to stay in touch.
for sure. Yeah.
All right, Assad, take care and have a great day.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on the show. Take care of yourself, Matt.